My name is Charles. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. I'm a financial advisor and managing principal over at Valark Financial. We're located right down here in downtown Hartford. And this is an event we've been holding since roughly 2014. And even before that, either the Guidance Symposium, if it's a full day event, or the Guidance Luncheon, if we do it more like this style. I've been doing this for a long time. About 3 decades, a little bit longer than that, functioning as a financial advisor and working and speaking in this market, the college funding market. We believe passionately in providing quality and ethical and responsible education surrounding the concept of how to pay for college. And we've formed partnerships with many schools and guidance offices, counseling offices throughout Connecticut, and we're grateful for that and looking to expand those whenever we can. We believe in what we call the college funding to retirement transition. And it truly is a transition. It's moving from parents who are at some of their highest earning years ever, with some of their highest expenses ever, trying to put 2, maybe 3 kids through college over a period of maybe 10 years, and then to stop working, lose all of their income, transition from saving and investing mode to withdrawal and spending mode, and to do all of that while providing a quality education for their kids and not going bankrupt themselves. This is a market that we believe passionately in. It's something that we specialize in. We don't just, college funding is not just a part of what we do, it is what we do. We like to say that we're a boutique level firm that provides concierge level service to a small number of really great people, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to share that with you. We believe in a team approach. We're well positioned to be able to handle this at scale, and we have several of our advisors and staff with us tonight. Gary, one of our guys here, is here, and I'm not sure where everyone else is. There we have Mark in the back here. So I hope you get a chance to chat with them a little bit and learn more about what we do and how we do it. We have done hundreds of financial aid nights for colleges and communities over the decades and helped literally thousands of families be successful with their most important asset, their children. And I'm happy and grateful to be able to share this story with you. Some objectives for today. We'll do a brief walkthrough of the college funding presentation that we're rolling out for the 25-26 year. We have a number of people in the room I recognize that we have presentations scheduled at, so this will give you an opportunity to see what is coming down the pike. Really, this is what I want to try and focus on, is the tips and tools that we use to communicate with families about college funding concepts. Very simple conversations, diagrams, or dialogues that you can have with your families and students in your office to better understand how this works and to be well positioned to be able to have a affordable and realistic college experience. Certainly we'll talk about some updates that are going on, and I'll share a little bit about the offering that we have in our office for you folks. And in fact, if you don't mind, I'd like to start with the offering so you have a little bit of background, and that is we love to partner with you guys. And we do consulting for your offices at no charge. If you come across a situation that you need some help with financially, or you don't feel qualified to answer a question about a 529, you probably get these questions from time to time, right? Call us. Call myself, call my staff, call my people. We'll be happy to have a conversation on the phone with you, or even come out to the school to meet with your families if you like. We do this at no charge and obligation. A lot of people ask us, how does that all work? And we do this because we like to make great friends and make great relationships. It just works itself out over time. We do presentations. The financial aid night presentation at schools, we've done it for decades. We do it in person. I know there are some firms that do this. A well-known one in Glastonbury, big firm, does this over Zoom. And I don't have a problem with that per se, but I want to tell you a short story about Zoom and why we choose to continue to do these in person. COVID came along, and we switched all of our presentations to online Zoom during that period. Previously, we would have 150, 200 parents or families attending a presentation at some of the bigger schools like Glastonbury, West Hartford, Farmington. And sure enough, when we went to Zoom, our attendance spiked. We started seeing 250. I think we had 300 attendees for the Farmington Zoom presentation. When we do a presentation live, we see on average about 30 or so requests for follow-up and consultation. When we did a Zoom one, even doubling the attendance, the engagement fell off a cliff. We'd have 1 or 2 requests for consultation. And I'm not saying this because, oh my gosh, we're trying to see a whole lot of people. I'm saying this because what is the point of doing these financial aid night presentations or college funding nights? Is it to deliver information? Zoom is very effective at that. But as we go through this, I think you're going to find parents are drowning in information. What they want is strategy. And not just strategy in general, but strategy for themselves, for their family. And the only way we believe that we can effectively help someone develop a viable college funding strategy is in individual consultations. So we want the engagement, we want the chemistry. How many of us are sick of Zoom? Yeah, we kind of are too. So we've really broken away from that. God bless the firms that do, but if you'd like an in-person experience, we're happy to deliver those. We don't charge for it. We do a neat thing though. We do a simulcast, and we have this little cool box. It's called a Black Magic, and it's a video switching box for Zoom presentations. And you plug in a bunch of cameras and put them around the room and have a microphone, and we have our video guy in the back here, Kevin, from First Light Studios. He'll run the box, and now we can have a live presentation that can be simulcast on Zoom at professional levels, where the cameras are switching, looks dynamite, looks like broadcast television. There is a slight charge for that, but that is something that we can roll out, and we've done in the past. We believe that engagement is the important part. Consultations with individual families are the important part. If we're just delivering information, that's really abdication. We're giving them information with no follow-up, and to help them engage with that, we think consultations are important. No fee is important. There's a lot of firms out there that charge fees, and I'll just throw this out here really quick. We get these things all the time. These are flyers from a company that would like to teach other financial advisors about how to do college funding presentations, and this is their fee schedule. And I think it's interesting that they charge several $1,000s to teach a family about how to pay for college. Not a big fan, because imagine, some of the families that might be struggling to pay for college already. Why do we want to charge an additional fee to help them understand how to pay for college? If we're in the business of helping families get their most important asset prepared for college and pay for college, we think it's important to not charge to do it and to just make great friends and great relationships. Also because it's the right thing to do. We do this in large part for the sheer joy of doing so. I can't tell you how many thousands of complimentary conversations and consultations that we have that lead to zero business whatsoever. That's okay. It's the right thing to do. We do it for the sheer joy of doing so. We provide ethical and responsible implementation, and this is important also. As we go through this, you're going to find there's a number of firms out there that think the best college funding vehicle is to hide all your money in a life insurance policy or an annuity. In fact, I'm going to talk about a firm in a minute called 123 College that markets to advisors to tell them how to double or triple your commissions through college funding by selling insurance and life insurance and annuity policies. Nothing could be closer to malpractice than that. So I would encourage you, as you are evaluating your options for the financial professionals you choose to work with, maybe engage a bit further to say, maybe even have one of your staffers or one of your junior counselors go through the process with the firm. What do they actually do in their meetings? What do they teach them? How do they implement? Maybe those are useful things. So let's walk through this year's presentation. As always, I like to start with a personal story. I am both a financial advisor and a parent. This is my son, Logan, who recently graduated from Penn State as a stage and audio professional. In fact, he's with us here in the room today, way back over there, running our stage and audio. So we're unbelievably proud, and I can talk about this from an advisor's perspective, but also from a parent's perspective, and I think that's probably a good perspective to have. When we do our presentations, we talk about, I've been in these rooms. I know the rooms that your parents are going to be headed into. I know the conversations they're going to have and the experience as they are shopping for their best fit college. And over again, in every single one of these presentations, eventually we come to this slide. And this is the one that says, yes, we offer some level of financial aid and support, and it's very generic, of course. And I'm sure that these folks are really great people, but I question how much they really know about financial aid, and are they in a position to be able to advise individual families, both ethically and from a license perspective, about complex financial topics, investments, and savings plans. So we believe that individual engagement with families is the way to reach this, and this is why we engage with families in the way that we do. There is a massive amount of information out there. Parents are drowning in it, and we want to take that in working with families and schools, take that information and boil it down to a boots-on-the-ground strategy that parents can deploy in their homes. When we finish up with a presentation, I like our attendees to be able to go home and have a conversation at the kitchen table with their kids that is reality-based. Because we are finding, parents don't have a perception of how they would really pay for college, and we can help you to get that message across. My goal tonight is to give you tools and resources to help you do that. We believe in the 5 partners. The parents, the government, the schools, there's all these partners have to work together to make college funding work out the way that it should. And of course, as we go through these presentations, we start with the FAFSA. Now, many of my colleagues, and myself included, we do walk through the FAFSA. We talk about what is in it. We talk about what to expect when you finish up and so forth. But, we don't spend a lot of time here. And we've had some response from schools. This especially happens when a new principal comes in, a new guidance person comes in. The first thing they want to do is install a presentation that talks about line by line by line how to go through the FAFSA. In my opinion, that is a waste of time. And the reason is because the FAFSA is easy enough to be able to complete. If you can do a tax return, you can do a FAFSA. They've recently reduced the number of questions from 100-something down to 30-something, which makes it even easier. But even spending time on doing the FAFSA often gives a false sense of security to the attendees. They feel like they are doing something. And if they just complete the FAFSA, all kinds of financial aid will fall out of the sky to help them. We've found, of course, that, the income is the biggest part that hurts us towards financial aid. Parents are expecting to see, I just need to move assets around and everything's going to be fine, and it doesn't quite work out that way. So here we have a presenter going through the FAFSA, talking about the Pell Grant, the FSEOG, and all these programs which 90% of the people in the room will not qualify for. So one of my friends from days past, I think she's gone on to retire now, Michelle Iannello from Portland, Director of Guidance, I paraphrase, but she basically said, the FAFSA night is a monumental waste of time. Because again, parents are drowning in information. What they want is strategy. How am I going to fix this giant hole in my budget to pay for a level of school that my student has earned and deserves? This is one of the most popular slides in our presentation. This is what most people come to the presentation expecting to learn. And every time this slide pops up, I see the pens and pencils coming out and writing down furiously on the pad. What they want to know is, I've got stuff. I've got savings and investments. I intuitively understand that those things will count against me for financial aid. So how do I hide them? And you can say, yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that counts. There's a bunch of stuff that doesn't count, and cash value of life insurance and annuities are big ones, and that's why we see firms like College 123 and others trying to push money into those plans because they pay large commissions, and theoretically it shelters it from financial aid. Again, nothing could be further from the truth, and this is bordering on malpractice, because income, not assets, is the stuff that hurts us. And we have that conversation with the attendees also, and they start to get it and engage on that. We need incomes north of $100,000 a year just to breathe the air in Connecticut. let alone pay the taxes in North Haven, Farmington, Avon, Glastonbury, West Hartford. So the vast majority of people that come to these presentations do have means. They do have income, they do have assets. They're worried about how to shelter, and we need to get the message to them, sheltering doesn't work. There is no such thing as a financial aid shelter. Income is going to be our biggest problem. I'm happy to say I did some research prior to this presentation to find that 123 College is out of business, thank goodness. Gary, would you do me a favor, please? Would you put one of these out on each table there, just to give you a little bit of background on the kinds of the solicitations that we get as advisors trying to teach us how to sell more life insurance through the presentations at your school. And I think you should be aware of this phenomena. So parents come to the presentation looking to shelter assets, and the biggest message I'd like you to be able to give to them is, guys, it's not the assets that's the problem, it's the income that we make just to walk down the street in Glastonbury or pay taxes in Farmington. And if we can get them to understand that the income is the problem and that they're likely not to receive the aid that they might have thought because of the incomes we earn in Connecticut, we start to engage them on that story. In fact, we think this is so important, we have a concept called the income hot zone. And I'll go over this briefly, but if you want, in your little white folders there, we have the guidebook or the workbook that we wrote for these presentations. And on page 7, it talks more about the income hot zone. If you would like, we can make these available for you at scale for your office. If you think this is a valuable resource, just let us know. The income hot zone suggests that there is a known outcome once we identify someone's income range. From $0 to $60,000, there's nothing for us to do. They're going to qualify for the simplified needs analysis or some other factor of the sort that gives them essentially every level of financial aid that there is. In the range from 60 to 120, there might be some wiggle room where if we do a little bit of shifting, we might get a little progress. But as soon as we get above 120,000 of income, again, there's nothing to do because we are out of range to qualify for what we would normally consider financial aid from Uncle Sam. Now, the CSS profile schools are a little bit different. But for FAFSA purposes, once we get above 120, the hole is as deep as it's going to get. It won't get any deeper. And there's nothing we can do in terms of moving assets around to get any more support from Uncle Sam. They'll qualify for the Stafford loan and work study, and that's about it. And when we have that message in the seminar, I can literally see the color coming out of the people's faces. And I have to give them a very difficult message. I have to tell them the truth of what's going on. But once we get past the truth, we can start to engage on solutions. We do talk about the profile. And the profile is more complicated and more involved, and if there was a place to go line by line, this might be one of those places. But even this one is 18 pages of hair-pulling, mind-numbing financial data gathering. I'm not sure how much the attention span is to even go through all of this, which is why we offer the consultation. If you have someone come into your office that asks a question about these forms that you can't answer or don't want to answer, call us. We'll be happy to talk with that person and take that load off of your plate if you'd like. The CSS also brings in all the stuff again. Cash value of life insurance, home equity, retirement plans, all those things will count to not receive financial aid. So when we discuss in the presentations, there is maybe some sheltering on the FAFSA. As soon as we get to the profile in the mini elite schools, all of that goes away. There is no financial aid shelter here that would benefit us. Here's an important update to the FAFSA for this year, CSS for this year. It's not exactly something that changed, it's more of an evolution. It used to be in years past the CSS was completed only once, one and done. Now we're seeing more and more schools are doing this each and every single year. That's an important planning point as a financial advisor because we want to manage income events relative to when they occur on the profile. For instance, if you had a big stock option or something coming due as an executive or manager at a company, and you have the choice of when to take that, we want to take it after the profile has been completed. assuming it's only one and done. We want to be as poor income-wise when we fill out the profile, and then we can be wealthy after that. Well, no more. Now we have to manage each income event each and every single year. And one of the big hot topics right now is Roth conversions. We are in some of the lowest tax rates in human history right now, and we're doing massive, I mean hundreds of thousands of dollars per client of Roth conversions to try and get into a better tax scenario. But a recent story I'll just share with you, we had a client that has a youngster getting ready to go to a mini elite school. We think they're going to qualify for some support. Their income is low, but they have a lot in their IRAs and stuff, and we want to do a Roth conversion. Now we're trying to run the math to say, is it better to take the tax benefits of a Roth conversion and lose the needs-based money? Or is it better to forego the Roth conversion and take the needs-based money from the school? Don't know yet. But if your advisors and financial professionals are not managing those concepts and understanding them, they might not be serving the client as best as they could. Here's a really useful diagram. Every time we do this presentation for school counselors, most people report that this diagram is one of the better ones that they like. And it suggests that we can look at the income and the assets of parents and children. You can do this really quick on a notepad in your office to show people that come in how the stuff they have will count towards ability to pay. Parents' assets, anything they have in their names, cash, checking, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, owned individually or jointly, 5.6% of it is going to be expected to go to the expected family contribution. And I know we call it the student aid index now, but it's still the EFC in my mind. 5.6%. You have $10,000 sitting in a CD, that will cause $560 to go towards their ability to pay and stack up on everything else they may have. Kids' assets, anything with the kid's name on it, a custodial account, something owned jointly, an individual savings account, they want 20% of that to go to ability to pay. There is no sheltering. And that's where most financial professionals stop. And they say, well, I've got this stuff, I've got that, I need to get it over there. I need a coffee can and a shovel. I need to dig a hole, put it in the can, and suddenly I get tons of financial aid, right? Except they never go to the other part. And the other part is income is where we have the problem. Anywhere from 0 to 25% of family income is expected to be used for college. And the scary part is the zero end of the scale, that's what we understand. That income hot zone is the 0 to 60,000 range. The scary part is how fast we get above the 25% level. And that's why we say at 120 of income or more, we are out of range for financial aid because the expected contributions there become so large based on income, not from assets. Kids are even worse. They want half of whatever the kids have. Now, bussing tables at Stop and, bagging groceries at Stop and Shop is not a big deal because they can earn up to $10,000 and it won't count. The problem is we have a stock or a bond or a mutual fund that's in the kids' names that we have saved for college, and it's done well, right? The market's high, we've done well. And now we sell it to pay for school, and it has capital gains, and that gain is considered income, and they want half. So the timing of when we do this is important. And again, if your financial professionals are not engaging at that level, we might want to consider some options. In fact, I think financial aid, we got to get away from this term. Financial aid is a terrible word to describe what we get. What is it we actually get? We get a loan package. We get the ability to borrow with interest to pay for school over time. And as soon as we get the parents to understand that message, suddenly the conversation changes. And now they start to evaluate their school choices just a tiny bit more carefully. And that's why we always talk about that one of the biggest players in this process is the parents. And I know you see this all the time. They come in with an expectation of a school choice that is driven in large part by what the students want. And I know, we get it. I'm a parent too. We always want the best for our kids. Many times we want an experience that is better than the one that we had. Parents want the same thing. They also have said, my kids they did band, they did sports, they did SAT prep, they kept their nose clean, they work, they volunteer in the community, they've done everything we've asked them to do. why shouldn't they be able to attend the school of their choice? And that's how they start the conversation. And then we start looking at school cost, even Penn State coming up on 60, it's a little more than that now. UConn, I mean, in-state tuition, I know you see this. So parents are not looking at the price tag so much as they are hearing their students say that they want a certain type of college experience, and then they get here and they said, my goodness, how am I going to pay for that? And that's where we get into lending. And we have an epidemic, I know you know this, of lending in America. When we run cash flow models for families, we don't run it for one student, we run it for all three. And the idea is many parents are only thinking about their first student and what that experience and cost will be. They don't think so much about the second and third, and we want to illustrate that for them to show them that if you have debt going on here, how it stacks up across different families. Kids don't understand what $72,000 worth of debt is. They have no concept. They have no income, no assets, no earnings. They don't even know what that means. So when you say to a student, that school's expensive, you're going to graduate with $80,000 of debt, they say, that's okay, because I'm going to a great school and I'm going to get a great job and make a lot of money. I'll pay. It's going to be great, right? Well, I want to give you a tool. We found this one to be very effective. When we talk about the debt question, don't talk about the amount they're going to be borrowing. They don't understand that. Talk instead about the loan payment. And we have a very simple formula that we use that says take the total amount of debt, divide it by 100, that's your payment. So my friend here with $72,000 of debt, call it 80, make it simple, he's going to have an $800 a month loan payment on top of a car, apartment, groceries, taxes, whatever. We want kids to understand and make viable and realistic choices for school because they're the one driving this. We say things like, you're smart. You got accepted to some really great schools. Be smart one more time and make a value-based choice for school, not necessarily a brand one. And often when we show the kids that formula, boop, light bulb goes off and they start making more realistic choices towards school. Parents don't understand this either. They almost go in blindly. We get this kind of letter all the time. This is an older one, back when UConn did cost less than $30,000. And it says, hey, I got some support here. It looks like the total amount I have to pay out of pocket is $2,800 a year. That's good, right? That's good. But then when we go into it a bit more and show them that the vast majority of it is just borrowing, they start to rethink the questions. And then stack this up times 4 years times 3 kids, it becomes the national epidemic of borrowing that you and I know about. Here's the update from the Trump administration. The Trump administration is clamping down on lending. The biggest one in my mind is the elimination of the subsidized loan. As you know, the Stafford Loan Program, direct lending program, whatever you want to call it, in many cases, if they qualify, the first $3,500 is subsidized. No payments or interest due while the kids are in school. Uncle Sam will cover that. Well, unfortunately, beginning in 2026, no longer. And that could add roughly $6,000 per student. I mean, that's not the end of the world, I suppose, but it does show us what the trend is. And trends on the amount that you can borrow, caps on the amount you can borrow, overall lifetime limit, plus loan caps. We've never seen that before. So when parents think about expensive schools, conversation being driven by the students, financial aid is going to be difficult to achieve because of my income. I would normally go to lending to do this, but I'm concerned about the amount of lending, that formula again. And now finally, even the amount of lending I can take is being capped. We need to have an engagement with the folks that help them understand from a realistic perspective what is doable in their families to avoid bankrupting their retirement and maybe even having the second or third kid have some difficulty. We see this a lot. 3 kids. First one, the parents going, oh, this is great. They're going to give Boston College. I know it's expensive, but okay, but we're going to pay it. Second one comes along, ooh, God, it's a little tight. How's UConn sound? Third one comes along, how do you feel about welding school? So my point that, that's why we look at 3 across the board, and now the resources that we normally consider to cover some of the more expensive schools are being cut. We think that's an issue also, which is why I love the PACT program. And we try to put this front and center wherever possible. What is wrong with 2 free years of college at the community school level? Let's get all of our BDRs done. All the big, the sports, the English, the gym class, let's get all that done over here at Manchester or something, and then transition to the school that they want. The only school that's on the diploma is the one they graduate from. But that's not a conversation the kids want to hear. That's why we want to try and engage with this information as much as we can, which comes to the students. They have a role in this. And their role is to make the transition into being a financially responsible adult. As you know, the schools will not show the bill that the parent is paying for to the parent unless the student authorizes it. I still remember my first experience with my son Logan when we were going up to pick up his dorm key. We go up to the Bryce Jordan Center, there's cheerleaders, the marching band, Penn State Lions there, we're having a great time. We truck on in there, walk in the door, what's the first thing they do? Separate you. He goes one way to get the key and sign the paper, parents go over here for coffee and donuts. And that's because they want the key going in the hand of the student and them paying or signing the lease for the dorm. And that's our goal. We want to make the students financially responsible, right? In our presentations, we try, and we do see kids in the room, when we try to say, hey, that's the train, and the train is leaving the station. We want students to understand and participate in the process. We want them to know that they are the primary borrower, and the parents are the co-signers. We want them to understand the difference. We want them going for the scholarships. We show them the 100, divide by 100 thing. We also teach them about there is various sources of financial aid out there, but what you would normally think of as financial aid from Uncle Sam, it is still there, but it only applies to that lower end of the income hot zone. We want to retrain people's thinking to understand that the vast majority of support comes from career-specific. Just as a great example, the ROTC program is the perfect example of career-specific money, if that's their path. But we find most of the result in the merit and achievement dollars, scholarship dollars. And we want to try to maximize that as much as possible, which leads us to talk about the schools. And the school's job is to make the student an offer. And the offer often looks like this. This is an actual award from Rochester a bunch of years ago when Rochester was about 50, but the data is still relevant. And we teach the parents that yes, for a top-level student, we can get some dollars, and we'll have some other stuff. And then we compare it against the same student that went to UConn, made the same offer or application at UConn. UConn says, wow, great student, we'd love to have you. We're going to offer you an academic excellence award. Yeah, that's great. But the vast majority is going to be lending. What we thought was interesting, and the reason I share this example, is this program here. Federal programs that was not offered at one school, but was offered at another. Federal program. We would think they would be consistent across the board, right? Unfortunately, they're not. And the reason is because the feds drive this money down to the school level to offer it to whomever they want to attract the students they want to attract. When I saw that, I said, aha, I got you. Now I know we can negotiate. So we teach and train parents in schools that the single most powerful strategy that we can have for someone who's scholarship eligible is to negotiate that scholarship and award. We think there are 4 appealable points. Unmet need, which is a mathematical need for money that wasn't provided. Unrecognized achievement, we want to bring forward that student's achievements in such a way that presents them in a powerful light. Unusual circumstances, maybe there was a hardship in the family, and competition between schools. And that's discussed in the workbook also, I think on page 26 and 27. And feel free to share that with your parents. That over and over again, when we engage in a negotiating process, we get an improvement in the offer. We have learned through our research that 70% of the money is offered in the first round. And they keep the remaining 30% in reserve for exactly this purpose. And we see this over and over again. This is not just a one-off. that if we can get in and appeal and negotiate our awards, we tend to get some better outcomes. Which leads me to the last player in the process, which is financial firms. We're one of those. And firms provide valuable research and lending and resources. We'd like to say the research and strategy is where we fit in. We help families figure this stuff out. But we also talk about the CHET plan an awful lot. And thank you to Fidelity, who runs the CHET plan, for helping to sponsor this event today. And we say that the CHET plan is an absolute no-brainer for a state of Connecticut resident. And that's because it is the only plan in the known universe that gives a $10,000 tax deduction for deposits made. And still, over and over again, when we go to see parents at their home and talk to them about their college funding plans, we see non-CHET plans all over the place. And I have to ask, how did this happen? Why do we not have a CHET? Oh, my advisor said that CHET was terrible. Garbage. CHET is phenomenal. If there's one single place or one single blanket recommendation I could make, is that every college dollar belongs in CHET because of the tax deduction and the double tax-free growth. There is no other plan on the planet that will give us that powerful outcome. Still, we see firms suggesting life insurance, annuities, which is malpractice. They do it because they get paid. Please tell your folks, focus on the CHET plan. And if they need some help setting those up or understanding those plans, we're happy to help. We also love CHESLA. CHESLA is the state of Connecticut's preferred lending agency. We think they do a great job. We're often asked, I need to borrow for my kids' college. What loan should I take first? And we say there's a logical order of progression here. We should probably do the Stafford loan first. Second, we should probably do CHESLA. Third, we might consider Citizens Bank or a private agency like that. After that, you're on your own. The last one on the train is the PLUS loan. And yet it is the very first loan that is offered on the school award letters. Please tell your parents to steer away from PLUS. Again, if you need some support in your office to help educate around that, we'll be happy to help. In the end, what we want to deliver to parents and to you and to our partners is a strategy that we've used successfully over and over again. We call it stacking. And when you talk about college funding with parents and kids that come into your office, please try to remember this concept. There is no one single source for college funding. Stacking implies that there are many sources and many tools that we use that all stack together to give us an outcome that is favorable. So we might start with building some cash flow for college. We probably want to put that in a 529 plan. We can look at the monthly payment plan also as a way to fund. We look at Roth conversion, tax strategies, CHESLAs, scholarships, state-sponsored assistance, local family members that can help out, stakeholders. And when you stack all this together and then add maybe a couple of creative strategies on top of that, it starts to look like a way to pay for college. Nobody pays for college with one big giant pile of money. They pay for it with multiple streams coming into the project. Some from investments, some from lending, some from scholarships, some from cash flow, some from grandparents. So what we encourage folks to do, we've literally done thousands of these things, is to build an education cash flow model that illustrates this. So we've built a proprietary Excel spreadsheet that takes the different students, what their cost of school is, what lending and scholarships we think they're going to see, maybe some work study, maybe some monies that the parents might put in, call bonuses, cash flows, whatever. Pull it out to a 30,000-foot view. Yes, we look at all three at the same. We look at when our problem years are, when everybody's stacking up together. And now we start to have a better picture on how we're going to get 3 kids out the door and done. If your financial professional is not using a tool like this, or maybe even using an off-the-shelf one that only considers savings, doesn't consider loans or scholarships or other things, we might want to reevaluate. We make these available free of charge. I think I said at the beginning, but just to reemphasize, this is not a profit center for us. This is a way to make great relationships and great new friends. It just works out in the end. It just does. I was having a conversation recently with our compliance officer out in San Diego, our supervisor, routine review, and they said, would you please document how you provide advice for your college funding clients and how you justify, the various accounts that you have. And as part of that, I went into my back files, our big, scan document, whatever, and looked at how many of these things have we done. Literally thousands, 5,000 or more, and many of those people never became clients. We do it again because it's the right thing to do. We love our communities, we love our families, we love our kids just like you do. We want them to be successful, and we're happy to provide guidance and support as much as we can. I know one of the hot topics out there is the elimination or potential elimination of the Department of Education. I got to tell you, I'm not terribly concerned. We can agree and disagree on different political things, but this is not quite as scary as maybe it's made out to be. What's really happening here, first of all, no immediate end to financial aid. What they're doing is discussing ending the oversight from DOE and transitioning it to a similar system that existed prior to Obama, where the distribution and tracking of this stuff is not handled at the federal level, but instead at the state and local level. The biggest issue that we see short term is just general chaos. But that's already been strained by the revamping of the FAFSA form and the delayed rollouts back to December. I mean, come on. How are families supposed to make an educated school choice when they're doing the application in September, October, but don't know their financial aid awards until December? We can help with that. We have tools in our office that will help them to understand and be better informed for their decisions. Last, I just want to say, for our team to yours, thank you so much for coming out today. Thank you for coming out on a Friday. And thank you. I just want to share, I've worked with schools for 3 decades now. I know how hard you work. Thank you for the work that you do. And hopefully this is a nice thing for you to do on a Friday afternoon. Just real quick on the handouts, I want to point out 1 or 2 things. Hopefully you all have our little folder here. And of course is the guidebook. We used to use the Department of Education's guidebook until they stopped printing them. Like honestly, during school, fall season, we would have a pallet of these things dropped in our office. They stopped doing that. I couldn't find a good resource, so we wrote this ourselves. I'd be very interested in your feedback. We update it every single year. We can make these available at scale for you at no charge if you would like. Secondly, I want to leave you with this little thought here. This one piece, State of the Union of College Funding, it's actually due for an update. This is a little bit older, but the information is, I'm going to call it 98% still valid. And what it talks about is the philosophy about how financial professionals and school professionals can work together and partner together to help our most important client, the college-bound family. I'll stop for now before I bring my friend Dr. Sorkin up. Are there any questions, thoughts, concepts, anything that I can help with while we're here? Anything at all? So far, so good? Okay. Well, thank you. I'll stick around and we'll have a 10-minute break. Thank you so much.